Hello, and welcome to our Laseractive Extras. These are games that we didn't think we had enough commentary to fill a 10 or 15 minute long video, so we took all the footage, we've compiled them into one 15-minute video, and hopefully you'll get a good idea of what these games are all about. We've got Pyramid Patrol, High Roller Battle, I Will, and Hyperion. So, without any further delay, let's go right into Pyramid Patrol. This is Pyramid Patrol. Pyramid Patrol was sold on its own, and it also came in a large pack with the Mega LD pack, the 6-button controller, a box set of Fantasia, and a demo disc. This is your typical on-rail shooter, the kind that you would have seen in an arcade in the early 90s, and this was going to be an arcade game, but for one reason or another, it never made it to the arcade, and it only came out on the Laseractive. Now there's a similar game on the 3DO called Pyramid Intruder, which uses the same pre-rendered backgrounds, but plays a little bit differently. The enemies are different, the shots are different. I consider it a different game. So it starts with the 3D rendered intro and then goes right into the game. After a few waves of enemies in level 1, you'll come to the boss, which is right here. This is one of the easiest bosses in all of video games. All you do is put your crosshair over it, hold down the shoot button, don't stop. It's already gone. It's already dead. That's the entire boss. Level 2 is a little more interesting. You fly into the pyramid. There's a few more waves of enemies, just like there were in level 1. And then, surprise, surprise, you fight another boss. This formula repeats throughout the game for all 5 levels, and it actually gets pretty challenging later on. I've not been able to beat it yet. So this is inside the pyramid. Still some cannon fodder enemies, they're not really hard to beat. But the boss of this level is kind of interesting. It takes place all on the video track of the Laseractive, so you have to beat it within a certain time limit, or else it times out and you lose. It doesn't matter if you have full health, it doesn't matter how much damage you've done. If the time runs out, then you lose. That's what happened when we were playing this, so you don't get to see much more of Pyramid Patrol, but I think you get a good idea of what the game is all about anyway. Next is High Roller Battle. It starts with a video intro with some really weird and completely unnecessary video effects. I don't really get what they were going for there. You get to choose your weapons and your loadout, which includes things like chaff and counters for when the enemies have locked onto you. And then the mission starts. And oh boy, is this one ugly game. The 3D rendered backgrounds are nothing special, the helicopters don't look great, and just everything about the game kind of looks bland, dull, and not appealing. The gameplay is very similar to many of the other on-rail shooters on the Laseractive, like Pyramid Patrol. You move your crosshairs, you shoot down the enemy helicopters, and that's pretty much all there is to say about it. Every now and then, one of them will lock on with their weapons to you, and that's where you use one of those counters that we talked about earlier. Overall, the gameplay isn't anything special, the graphics aren't anything special, the sounds are annoying. This is a real low point in the Laseractive library. Mission 2 is pretty much the same as Mission 1. You fly around the same 3D rendered background. Eventually you get to this badly rendered ocean side. Other than that, it's exactly the same level. The same thing that you just got finished doing. Move your cursor, shoot down the helicopters. Try to counter the missiles when they lock onto you. There's really not much more to say about this game. It's a simple on-rail shooter, and it's probably my least favorite title on the Laseractive. You know what? I changed my mind. I Will is my least favorite game on the Laseractive. This one's just strange. And look at this title screen. It's pink and washed out. It just looks terrible. The most interesting part of this entire game is this intro. You'll see some really embarrassing acting, and we've actually left the whole intro in here for you to enjoy, so I'm just going to shut up right now and let you watch the most amazing part of this entire game.
Quickly, Catherine. The alpha ozone, it's gone.
Oh!
I've been working on it for 30 years. I've finally succeeded, and now it's gone. What are we going to do now at the International Clean Air Conference? Everybody's waiting to see it. What can I do? I'm so old now. Who is going to help me find the alpha ozone for me?
I will. I'll get it back for you.
But Catherine, it might be dangerous.
Oh, don't worry. There's two of us. Sherlock, you'll help me, won't you?
Thank you, Catherine. Oh, take these. I'm sure you will need them.
Thank you, Doctor. And don't worry, we'll find the alpha ozone for you. Now then, Sherlock, where do we start? Oh, let's see my father. He'll know what to do.
Who else knew about your invention?
Well, of course, Mr. Nelson did. He's an Undersecretary at the Department of Environment. He's been financing the project.
And those three other men who came to the lab with Mr. Nelson, they all knew about it too.
Yes, I've got their photographs here.
What are these blue, red and white parts?
I don't really know.
Doctor, can you tell me more about these four people?
Well, as I said, Mr. Nelson is at the Department of Environment. He's retiring at the end of the year. He's been most supportive throughout the project. And this man is Mr. Blazer. He's a property developer. He's currently very involved in the development of an indoor leisure complex. The alpha ozone is to improve the air quality. And this is Mr. Flash. He's a newspaper photographer. He wanted to get a scoop on the alpha ozone story, but of course, I wasn't interested. And Mr. Pound, he's a stock market analyst, specialising in new scientific developments. People call him Antenna. He's got this huge information network stretching right across the country. He's a strange chap. He always carries two umbrellas. I hear they're all very close, all very good friends.
I see.
Right then, Sherlock. Let's get going.
Catherine, if you get any leads with Sherlock, you've got to let me know.
Yes, Dad. We'll keep in touch.
After that intro, the game finally starts. You can choose to be a taxi or a bus. It doesn't really matter which one you pick. I couldn't find any differences between them aside from the graphic that shows up on the screen. The game is played with you driving around this map, randomly clicking on objects that usually say not enough information. But if you're real lucky, eventually you'll click on something like this, where it will show a screen in London. Now you move the magnifying glass around and randomly click on things. It highlights when there's something you can click on, but you'll just miss it if you're not hammering the button the entire time. Sometimes when you hit something it still says not enough information. I don't get why they do that. Anyway, what we're trying to do is we're trying to find clues. There, clicking on that horse we got 5 points and maybe a clue. Clicking on the bank station says not enough information. It's a very confusing game, and it does a really poor job of telling you where you're supposed to go. Right now, all I know is that we're looking for a man with 2 umbrellas. I don't know why we're looking for him, but we gotta find him. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna keep clicking every object in the scene that we find. Eventually we'll go back to the map, we'll try to find another one of these scenes that we can get into, and then we'll start the whole process over. Clicking, going back to the map, driving around, clicking on something else. So here we found a clue. Once you find a clue, you drive back to her policeman father and you show her what you found. It doesn't make any sense where the clues are. I don't understand why we found this boat on the side of the building. They must have spent their entire lighting budget on that first scene, since this scene is unnecessarily dark. It's just kind of a weird decision to film it like that. And last we have Hyperion. Hyperion is an on-rail shooter similar to Pyramid Patrol and Space Berserker, but far superior to either one of those two games.
From out of the depths of space, a horrific
The 3D backgrounds and rendering are amazing for the time, and the game plays super fast. It's also the only two-player game on the Laseractive, or at least the only one that I know of.
space stations.
Unlike some of the other games on the system, you can tell they really spent a lot of time and money making this one look as good as it could.
The annihilation of life on Earth was a severe blow to these people, but despite the depression that set in, they continued to raise children. The flame of human life continued to flicker. However, the light of their destiny eventually appeared before them, a menacing threat to their fragile existence. The tempest began to rage.
When I originally played this game, I played it with a friend and we actually ended up playing it for a couple hours. That's a rarity on the Laseractive because most of the games are rather short. I'm not going to put all the footage that we recorded, but just a little bit so you can get an idea of what this game is all about. Overall, this is probably my favorite game on the Laseractive. It looks amazing for its day, it's fun to play, and you can even play it with a friend. Is it a better on-rail shooter than something like Star Fox? No, it certainly isn't, but it's still a good game in its own right, and it deserves to be remembered and played by more people. This game reminds me a lot of the Sega CD game Sylphid. You have a lot of pre-rendered objects that are flying at you, and they can hurt you just like they did in that game. The action in this game is super fast, and there's always something to do. You're always moving, you're constantly shooting the enemies, dodging the things that are flying at you, there's always explosions going on the screen. It's just an amazing showpiece for what they could do with the Laseractive. The first boss is really similar to the one in Pyramid Patrol, where you have a time limit to beat it, but fortunately it's much easier. A lot of the enemies are just on the background video and aren't rendered by the Genesis, so they still blend in with the background really well. If you ever get the chance to play a Laseractive, this is the game that you should play. It's a great example of what the system could have been if it just had a longer life. In 1995, the Saturn and the PlayStation came out. They were a whole lot cheaper and the games were better. The Laseractive just didn't stand a chance. We played this game for a couple hours. We were having a really good time playing it and kind of forgot that the camera was recording and the capture card was capturing video. Of course, I'm not going to paste that whole video here, that would be boring to watch. But we'll edit in a couple more scenes of some of the more interesting parts that we saw. And that wraps up our Laseractive feature. I hope you enjoyed seeing some games that you probably haven't seen before, and that most people won't get the chance to play. Unfortunately, the system still is unemulated, so the only way to play it is with a real system and the discs themselves. We have a few more games that we didn't get footage of, including Vajra, Don Quixote, Ghost Rush, and Manhattan Requiem. If you'd like to see those games, let us know and maybe we'll do a Laseractive Extras Part 2. And if you like this video, be sure to check out when we played Triad Stone, Space Berserker, and Rocket Coaster. Thanks for watching.